Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Just Trucking On Down the Line. I am your host, Charles Smith. Oh my gosh, it's been so long since I've done any videos. What has happened? The world has come to a bloody end. Well, or at least it feels like it. COVID has happened. The country's been shut down. They tried to impeach the president. Well, they impeached the president, but they couldn't kick him out because, well, they just couldn't. Anyway, what I'm really here to talk about today, and I like to focus on what I'm doing out here trucking. I had a great student for several months. Kyle came on the truck, got his license, got his miles done. He's out running team now with another driver who was going through training. So I think he's doing great, and he's just waiting for the day that he can have his own truck. We'll talk a little bit about training in a minute, but I need to talk about this lawsuit with Oliveira versus New Prime. And if you're not aware what this is, a young man named Oliveira came to work for Prime several years ago, went through the training program, and then decided that he was being mistreated, that he was being treated unfairly, that Prime went and did him wrong, and that they lied to him, and that they did all kinds of stuff that made it hard for him to make a living. Let me tell you, look up on the internet right now, call a trucking school, find out how much it costs to get your CDL license through a local trucking school. It costs anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 is my understanding. It was about $3,000 when I went through, but I got lucky and got a grant and didn't have to pay for it. But still, people had to pay $3,000. And there were people who walked in there and handed cashier's checks and money orders and all that other stuff and paid $3,000 to get a license. If you come to drive for Prime and you don't have any CDL experience, they will put you through their school. And they don't charge you. What they do ask for is a year of driving after you get the license. And it ain't even got to be 12 months of real driving. You can take time off. You don't have to drive 365 days. You just have to be actively employed for 365 days. Do you know what I mean? If you don't know what I mean, leave a comment below and I'll explain it for you. So the program is you go anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks out with a trainer. The trainee does most of the driving. Excuse me, the student, because he's not a trainee yet. There's a difference. The student does, in my truck, does 75 to 85% of the driving. I still like to drive, so every now and then I get behind the wheel and I finish up the day. But based on a 2,500 mile week, that is anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 miles to the course of your student period. Oliveira complains that he drove for 10,000 miles and didn't get paid. Well, I don't believe he really drove 10,000 miles, and I'd be interested to see what his training records really look like. Most people come through the program anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. Average, when my wife went through 3 years ago, was like 21 days, and she did it in 19. So my wife is awesome. If you doubt that, ask me again. I'll tell you, my wife is awesome. Anyway, and she passed the first time. Yay, Eli, I'm proud of you. Anyway, so he drove anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 miles. I got to tell you, if it took you 10,000 miles to get your CDL, you weren't a good student in first place, or your trainer took advantage of you. PSD is not typically the time when a trainer is going to take advantage of you. That's not when it happens, because a trainer is only making an extra $300 a week while you are a student. You don't get paid for being a student. Shouldn't have to. You're coming with no skill to get a skill. Plain and simple. Next, Oliveira drove for 30,000 miles while a trainee. He got guaranteed $700 a week for that 30,000 miles. Now, Prime does come and say that we will pay you 14 cents a mile. Now, if you drive as a team for 5,000 miles, guess what? 5,000 miles times 14 cents is $700. Simple math. However, if you only do 3,000 miles this week and you're available for dispatch, Prime still paid that trainee, there's a difference, still paid that trainee $700 as long as he was available for dispatch. If he went home, he didn't get $700 a week. Basically, he got $100 a day. But if he did more than 5,000 miles, and you can ask my student Kyle, we'd had 2 or 3 weeks where we did like 6,600 miles. We had a week we did 7,000 miles. Well, we did those miles. He got paid 14 cents a mile. Okay? And so say you did 6,000 miles. Simple math. 6,000 miles times 14 cents is $840. Okay. Plain and simple. Oliveira claims that Prime made him sign an independent contractor agreement. Prime didn't make him do a damn thing. They said, you have a choice. You can be a company driver or you can be a lease operator. If you want to be a lease operator, you'll become an independent contractor and you have certain responsibilities. You make a truck payment, you pay for the fuel, you buy a certain number of things. Every person who comes to work for Prime has to buy certain things. You have to buy snow chains. Yes, I don't like having to buy snow chains, but guess what? That's the rules of this company. If you want to operate here, you got to buy snow chains. Now, if you come with a set of snow chains and it fits on the super singles, bring your snow chains with you. God bless you. But there are certain places in the country that certain times of the year, you got to have snow chains on. So if you don't have any, you should buy some. And by the way, they're cheaper at the Prime terminal than they are buying them out at the truck stop. Go check the prices. You have to buy some load locks. The reason why you're having to buy load locks and the reason why you had to buy snow chains is because there are idiot freaking drivers out there who sold them because they're irresponsible or they just didn't care about company's equipment. The guys who should really complain, in my opinion, are the flatbed drivers. The flatbed drivers end up picking up $1,500 or $2,000 worth of equipment when they become a flatbed driver because Prime got tired of drivers losing shit and making them have to pay for it. So they said, we'll make you responsible for it. I don't hear too many people saying they don't have their flatbed equipment. Oh my gosh, just don't even get me started. You didn't have to buy everything at the company store. Okay? They give you a list of recommended things you should have for the truck. You should have some jumper cables, and you should have an atlas, and you should have a thermometer, and you should have a tire gauge, and you should have certain things. Well, most of these guys coming out of training, unfortunately, haven't saved any money. They've blown all their money while they were in training and don't have the money to buy that stuff. They could walk up to Walmart and buy the same set of jumper cables that they're selling at the company store. Yes, they're a little more expensive at the company store, but guess what? Somebody had to bring that stuff in and make it available. Prime is good enough that they'll even take it out of your checking payments instead of making you come up with cash on the spot. A lot of places make you come up with cash on the spot for the things that you have to buy. Why shouldn't you be responsible for your own equipment? Why shouldn't you be responsible for your own gear? But at no point in my entire recruiting process did I ever feel like there was a pressure from my recruiting department or from anybody at orientation that I had to go lease or that I had to go company or whatever it was. I was told, do whatever I think is best for me in my situation. When I came to Prime as a company driver for the first 3 months. When my wife came to Prime, she came in and started PSD. So I drove as a company driver till my wife came on and went through PSD. I'm a smart man. I was not going to train my wife for PSD. I love my wife. I would not train my wife for PSD today. Would I teach her how to do some things that differently? Yes, I certainly would. I have more experience now. I'm more confident in myself as a driver. But that's not fair. I probably would teach my wife to do PSD today. But that is 3 years later. That's not where we were 3 years ago. When my wife got her license and was full-time for Prime, then I went lease. But nobody made me do that. In fact, my fleet manager, who was on the company side, wished I hadn't. She says, I need good company team drivers. And I said, but we want to do this. And she said, okay. And she didn't hold me up. She didn't say, no, I'm not going to get you in. She didn't do anything to hold me up. She didn't twist my arm, and she didn't say I shouldn't do it. So for somebody to sit there and cry to the court that they were treated unfairly, I'm sorry, it's a bunch of crap. Now, do I think that the arbitration clause needed to be thrown out? Sorry, anybody at senior management at Prime. Yeah, I think that we should have the right to be able to have an attorney involved or go to court if we didn't like the contract. I think the rest of the contract is pretty good. I signed it. We read it before we signed it, and we agreed to the terms and conditions, and we've honored it. I've honored it through one lease, and I'm 6 months into a second lease, and we will continue to plan to continue to honor it. So I guess I got riled up today because I watched a video from some guy who hasn't driven since the 80s, and who's telling people, don't go drive for these mega carriers. Don't drive for 14 cents a mile. Well, you tell me what place the minute after you get your CDL is going to offer you a paycheck for you to learn how to do the business. If you get your CDL today and you go down the street and work for one of these places, if they'll take you, because most won't, you're just not going to get paid anything because they're going to tell you don't have enough experience. So a company like Prime or any of the other larger carriers has said, we're going to take it on our shoulders to teach you the job and get you out there and help you change your life. I just had a student on my truck who was making $500 a week. $500 a week as a pest control guy. And unfortunately, he had personal issues at home. He was a little homesick, and his mama was calling him every 15 minutes when he wasn't driving, saying, come home, come home, come home. Well, I picked up the fella on Saturday, and on Wednesday morning, he got off my truck in Ontario, California, and flew home to Georgia. Boy was telling me he didn't have money for a car payment, but suddenly he had the money to fly home to Georgia, no notice, same day from California. This job ain't for everybody. If you don't know that by now, if you're new to trucking or you're trying to get into trucking, it's not for everybody. But if you're going to make a commitment, make this commitment and know that you got to get through 3.5 to 4 months training and another 8 to 9 months of a commitment that you've made to the company, because the company put out money for you to get trained and learn how to do a job. A skill that as long as you keep your license active and your medical card active, you'll have a job the rest of your life. All you gotta do is just knuckle down. And I get homesick. When I went through training, like I said, I got my CDL at a school in Phoenix, and they were great and awesome and all that other good stuff, but I had to go out and get trained just like everybody else. And I can tell you that when I was in training, we got through the house one weekend, and I went and saw my wife and hugged her and loved her and told her I missed her, and oh my God, I can't believe I've done this, and I think I'm just going to stay home. And my wife looked at me and she said, you made a commitment, and you need to keep that commitment. You need to keep it for yourself, and you need to keep it for us. We have responsibilities. And I sucked it up, and we got through it, and I learned a lot, and I also learned when it was time to go. And when it was time to go, I left with my head up, and I left knowing I had done a good job for the company that I had worked for. And yeah, and I moved on, and I've come to Prime, and I've been Prime a little over 3 years, about 3 years and 3 months now. And I don't regret a minute of it. I miss home. I miss my wife. My wife's not on the truck anymore. Y'all see that. It's just me. But that doesn't mean that doesn't mean I don't want to be home, but it means that I'm doing this to help us make a living until we meet some goals that we've set. But I just I see all of these people making all these comments about how Prime is evil. Well, you know what? You don't have to come to Prime. You don't have to do this. But I invite you to go to some of these other companies. Go to Swift. Go to Knight. Go to any of these other companies. And I can tell you, our equipment is hands down better. Not many places are you going to be given a reasonably new piece of equipment the minute you come out of training. My first truck that I got when I came out of training was 3.5 years old. It probably had just a few months left on its lease, It had 450,000 miles on it, and that truck gave me all kinds of hell the first 2 weeks I had it. And in the first 3 weeks that I was at that company, I went through 3 trucks. Now, I did get lucky, and on the 4th truck, they put me in a relatively new truck. It was same year. It was the end of 2016. I got a 2016 truck that had 110,000 miles on it, and I kept that truck until I left there. But the rest of the time, most people were getting 3.5 and 4-year-old trucks that had been ratted out. And if you wanted to be a lease operator at that company, you had to wait till you were there 90 days, and then they would let you lease from their fleet of old trucks. I know people here at Prime that have stepped into a lease on day 1 out of training, and the truck had 10 miles on it. It had never been driven by anybody but the factory people and the shop at Prime getting it ready to get out on the road. You guys don't know how good we have it here at Prime. And for somebody to get there, and the court case ultimately was about throwing out the arbitration clause, and it got thrown out and whatever. And I don't know what that's ultimately going to mean for how we get paid as drivers, but I know that Prime is a good company, and I know that there is a lot of time and investment, and I believe that Prime is really the best situation for me at this time. I know all of the members of senior management. Most of them know me by name. They all know me by sight, but most of them know me by name. And I can tell you that in my conversations with them and my interactions with them, that they truly care about what's happening. They want us to be the first thing that we do. And you hear it from our sales director, you hear it from our safety department, you hear it from the president of the company. Safety is our highest calling. No matter what we do, we want to be safe because they want us to get home to our families. They want the freight to be delivered on time and safely as well, but they want us to get home to their families. To our families, not their families. But they want us to get home to our families because at the end of the day, this is a job. It's a career, it's a lifestyle, but it is a job, and they want us to be able to get home to our families. And they want us to have a good lifestyle. I can recount stories of people that have been able to do amazing things since they've gotten into trucking, and specifically since they've gotten into Prime. I've heard stories of people who were homeless and were able to turn around and buy a home cash. I see all kinds of folks go in and who had never before been able to buy newer vehicles, go in and buy brand new and 1-year-old vehicles, and nice vehicles. We're talking $30,000 and $40,000, $50,000 vehicles, and pay for them. One guy I know bought one cash, bought a $50,000 pickup truck cash. How do you do that? Well, you get out here and you work your butt off. And I'm rambling a little bit. This guy, Oliveira, I'm sure he's a nice guy. And he talked about how he had weeks where he had 0 paychecks, or he had to pay Prime to drive. And, well, that's just bad management on his part. Have I had weeks where I didn't make any money? Yeah. Usually those weeks, I'm not even usually, every time I've had a week where I didn't make a paycheck or I ended up in the hole, was because I went home. If I go home for 10 days, that's a full pay period plus a couple days. That means I didn't make no money. The truck still has to have its payment. Okay? It also means I didn't buy any fuel that week, so I don't have any fuel costs. But there's fixed costs every week. This truck has a payment. And I need to factor in when I go home how long I can afford to be off the road. Most of the time I go home for a couple of days, 3-4 days. Sometimes I go home for a week. But I plan and I say, okay, I know that when I come out, I'm not going to have made money. But guess what? That week I didn't drive. So this guy's saying I should be paid a minimum wage. Well, minimum wage for what? Sitting at home on your fat ass? And I'm a fat ass, so I can say that shit. So yeah, get over it. Anyway, I crack myself up, I tell you what. Anyway, this job is what you make it. You can be miserable out here, and I see people that are miserable. I see people, oh my gosh, why don't you just go home? Go work at McDonald's. Go flip burgers at Wendy's or something like that. But actually, please don't do that, because if you're flipping my burger and you're that miserable, I'm afraid you're going to screw up my food. So don't do that. But make a plan. Know what it costs to be out here on the road. Is it all, unicorns and rainbows? No, it's not all unicorns and rainbows. But it's not all doom, gloom, and despair either. Because I've been able to do some pretty amazing things in the last 3 years. My wife and I have paid off a lot of our debt. We are living in a nice house. Not an awesome house, not a mansion. Don't want to live in a mansion. Too much freaking work for a mansion. But anyway, we live in a nice place. We have a nice car. My wife has a beautiful German Shepherd who apparently loses her damn mind when I go home, but is nice, calm, cool, and collected when I'm not there. So, yeah, it's probably my fault. I probably encouraged that bad behavior. But anyway, oh gosh, I just don't even know where to go with this. Other than to say, these guys are fucking idiots. Excuse my language. Fucking idiots. There. They're going to go out there and they're going to screw it up for people who just want to go out there and earn a living. I don't want to do this forever. If my investment program, the lottery, kicks off tonight, then guess what? Next week I'm turning in the truck. Sorry, Ryan. I won the lottery. I'm out of here, dude. Love you much. You can keep all the stuff. Except my iPad and my phone. Yeah, the rest of it, whatever. You can have it. Seriously, you got to have a plan when you're out here. You have to have a financial plan. You have to know what it takes to meet those goals. And then work your plan. Have a good relationship with your fleet manager. I talk to my fleet manager a lot. I'm going to guess that I probably talk to him more than he talks to most of his other drivers. And it's not just because I'm on the driver advisory board, but I'm an over communicator. I want to know what's going on, and I want him to know what's going on with me, so that if something comes up, we're able to react to it. And the guy's kind of become a friend. He's kind of all right. So I like hearing from him. I like just knowing what's going on with him. But because of that, he knows what my plan is. He knows what he knows what's in my head. He and I know what to expect from him. I have goals that I need to make or to meet, and he helps me get to those goals. And when I don't feel like we're reaching those goals, then I'm on the phone with him and I'm saying, hey, we need to talk about this. I need to be doing this, that, and the other, or I need to be going home, or I need to, whatever it is I need to do. But I keep in touch with him, and I maintain responsibility for myself and my business. And I say, okay, we're meeting the goal or we're not meeting the goal. Part of that goal involves training. And if a training program's not working, then I'm on the phone with him and saying, hey, this isn't working. Just like it just happened with the student that just came on my truck for a few days and then flew home. It didn't work out, but I let him know. The minute I knew that there was a problem, I let him know what was going on. So today I'm sitting in Texas. Had great Mexican food today here in Hereford, Texas. But we'll get a new student pretty soon, and I'll keep going, and we'll see what's going on, and move that plan along. But I just needed to rant for a while, and I thought it'd be a good time to do a video since I hadn't done one since before all the COVID stuff. So here's the deal. Wear a mask when you're out. Don't wear it while you're driving. You look like a dumbass. Oh my gosh, if you're going to be in public, don't bunch up with a bunch of people. Don't go to the bar and hang out with 10,000 of your closest nobody that you don't knows. If you go to the beach and there's too many dang people there, leave. Whatever this COVID thing is, I expect it's going to be over on November 5th. Just a prediction. But yeah, as soon as the election's over, I have a feeling that this will die down. Or if we just happen to have some rebirth of common sense in the next 90 days, then maybe this will all simmer down a little bit before the election. But if you're in a place where there's a lot of folks that are sick, be respectful. Put on the darn mask when you're out there. If you're around people that are sick, get away from them. Be careful when you go home on home time. As I understand, most of the folks that have gotten sick here at Prime have all gotten sick when they've been, not when they're out on the road, because you're kind of isolated out here on the road. It's just me and the truck. There ain't nobody in here today. And my interaction with people is usually 6 feet or more away when I do get out of the truck. But it's when you go home and you relax. Don't let your guard down. We need to keep an eye on this. I'm not the most pro-mask person in the world, but if you're sick, guess what? Wear your damn mask. If you're around people, wow, that is really brightening up. Yeah, wear your mask. Don't wear your mask in the truck. There ain't nobody else in the truck, so you ain't gonna get nobody sick, and you're not gonna get sick from anybody else. So yeah. Anyway, I think that's kind of all I got today. I've talked way longer than I planned. So have a great day. Be safe. God bless America. God bless the Dallas Cowboys. Love you, Eli. Miss you. I'll be home soon. Bye, y'all.